The shortest route to wealth is the contempt of wealth. Let's dive right into this explainer with that incredible paradox. Because get this, the man who wrote that core tenet of Stoic philosophy, Lucius Annaeus Seneca, was actually one of the richest, most powerful politicians in the entire Roman Empire. I mean, we're talking about a guy who literally told his followers to value a thatched roof just as highly as gold, all while simultaneously owning some of the most expensive, sprawling estates in all of Italy. Welcome to today's explainer, where we are going to unpack the fascinating, totally contradictory life of Seneca. We'll be distilling his 2,000-year-old masterpiece, The Letters from a Stoic, into highly practical advice for your modern life. And honestly, whether you're completely new to philosophy or you've been reading the Stoics for years, Seneca's letters are packed with these amazing blueprints for living well. They honestly feel like they could have been written yesterday, cutting right through all the noise of our busy modern lives. Here is our agenda for today. 1. The Paradox of Seneca. 2. Humanizing Stoic Philosophy. 3. The First True Essays. 4. Wisdom for Everyday Life. And finally, 5. Facing Age and Death. Section 1. The Paradox of Seneca, the richest man preaching poverty. So, to truly understand his philosophy, we have to look at the messy reality of the man himself. We usually picture ancient philosophers as these perfect, isolated monks who practiced exactly what they preached from the safety of some quiet mountaintop, right? But Seneca's reality was vastly different. He suffered from severe chronic asthma his entire life, and yet he rose to staggering heights in the deeply cutthroat, dangerous world of Roman politics. Despite that recurring ill health and a pretty undistinguished background, he managed to become a brilliant orator, a famous playwright, and eventually the chief minister to an emperor. And yet, throughout all of this high-stakes political maneuvering, he just kept consistently preaching inner peace, simple living, and the absolute rejection of greed. Talk about chronological whiplash. In AD 41, Emperor Claudius banishes him to the lonely, desolate island of Corsica. So he spends 8 long years in near despair, completely removed from the high society he loved so much. But then, suddenly, he's recalled in AD 49 by the Empress Agrippina, and his new job? To tutor her 12-year-old son, a boy who would soon become the tyrannical Emperor Nero. Yeah, that Nero. For years, Seneca acted as the unofficial chief minister, basically the steady hand guiding the empire through some intensely turbulent times. But as we know, power is a dangerous game. By AD 65, Nero's paranoia had completely peaked, and Seneca, the emperor's old tutor, was actually forced by his own student to commit suicide. Before that tragic end, though, he accumulated immense power and wealth, 300 million sesterces to be exact. His enemies, like a guy named Suilius, publicly accused him of amassing that absolute mountain of cash within just 4 years of royal favor. Suilius pointedly asked how any philosophical teachings could possibly justify that kind of massive fortune, especially while claiming that a wise man needs absolutely nothing. It's a glaring contradiction, and it makes Seneca history's most notable example of a man arguably failing to live up to his own rigid principles, basically walking this impossible tightrope between philosopher and politician. Section 2. Humanizing Stoic Philosophy, from cold ideal to relatable practice. Now, Seneca didn't just blindly repeat the old rules of philosophy, he evolved them for real, flawed human beings living in a complex society. Early Greek Stoicism had this very forbidding, harsh aspect to it. It taught that the wise man should be an utterly emotionless rock, achieving a state called apatheia. Cato, a great early Stoic, supposedly even regretted kissing his wife in a moment of danger. But Seneca completely humanized the philosophy. He taught that, hey, it is perfectly natural and okay to feel grief, to cry, and to have close attachments to the people you love. The goal isn't to be numb. The goal is to feel those troubles, but ultimately overcome the pain through reason. He didn't want you to be an unfeeling robot. He wanted you to be a resilient human being. His highly relatable approach to personal growth is perfectly captured right here. What progress have I made? I am beginning to be my own friend. Think about our modern world for a second. We are constantly surrounded by digital noise, yet so many people feel completely isolated and lonely. Seneca reminds us that true progress doesn't start with retreating from the world. It starts with finding deep peace and comfort in your own company. Because a person who is a genuine friend of themselves will never truly be alone, no matter what happens around them. Section 3. The First True Essays, Letters to Lucilius. Written at the very end of his life, right after he retired from Nero's dangerous court, his masterpiece, the Epistulae Moralis, was sent to his friend Lucilius. Lucilius was a hard-working civil servant stationed in Sicily. As the philosopher Francis Bacon later described them, these letters were essentially the first real essays. They aren't dry academic treatises by any stretch. They're informal, colloquial conversations that jump straight from daily life into deep moral reflections. Seneca knew he was writing these for future generations, basically drafting a direct blueprint for modern self-help and personal philosophy.
Section 4. Wisdom for Everyday Life. Practical Lessons for the Modern Mind.
In an age where we are constantly doom-scrolling, swiping, and switching tabs, Seneca's warning against a restless mind is honestly more relevant today than ever. When talking about focused learning, he urges his friend Lucilius to stop flying frantically from book to book. He says constantly changing what you consume is like trying to heal a wound by continually swapping out the ointments before they even have time to work. Instead, he heavily advises reading well-tried authors and actually taking the time to digest just one meaningful thought each day. That is how you truly fortify yourself against the challenges of life. His core warning is beautifully simple. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. Constantly sampling different things without fully absorbing anything is just the symptom of a sick, unfocused mind. He actually uses a really visceral comparison here. He says food that is vomited up immediately isn't digested, right? And in the exact same way, knowledge that merely passes quickly through a distracted mind offers absolutely zero lasting benefit. Focus is where the true value lies.
Just as we've got to be deliberate about our information diet, Seneca says we have to be equally deliberate about our relationships. A lot of people make the mistake of trusting others before truly judging their character. Seneca says, no, you must evaluate someone carefully first. But once you decide they are a true friend, you must welcome them heart and soul. Trust them as completely as you trust yourself, and speak to them without any reservation. He warns heavily against fair-weather friendships formed just for utility, kind of like modern networking solely for personal gain, because the moment that utility vanishes, so will the friend.
He also issued a really stark warning against toxic crowds. He vividly describes a time he went to the arena in Rome, expecting, some light entertainment during the lunchtime interval. But instead, he witnessed brutal gladiator executions. He watched this massive crowd enthusiastically chanting for blood. And he writes that he actually came home more selfish, more cruel, and less humane just by being in contact with that mob. It's a timeless lesson. The larger the crowd, the greater the danger to your own character. We absolutely absorb the traits of the masses we surround ourselves with. He even tackled physical culture, and his take on this is pretty amusing. Seneca thought it was absolutely silly to spend all your time in the gym trying to develop the neck and shoulders of a prized ox. He advises that spending all day building biceps, sweating with a coach, and eating huge, heavy meals just drains the vitality you need to exercise the mind. Instead, he suggests keeping workouts really short and simple, stuff like jumping or running, exercises that tire the body out quickly. That effectively saves your precious time and energy to cultivate your spirit and your intellect. Section 5. Facing Age and Death, the Final Test. In his later years, Seneca was surrounded by these undeniable reminders of his own aging. Reflecting on his crumbling country estate, he noticed the trees he had planted years ago were dying, and the slaves he once played with as a child were now toothless old men. But here's the thing. This realization didn't depress him, it liberated him. He realized that old age is actually full of profound pleasure if you just know how to use it. We suffer needlessly because we are constantly projecting our anxiety into the future. Instead, he argues we should regulate each day as if it brings up the rear, literally, as if it completes our life entirely. Seneca mentions a Roman official named Pacuvius who would hold a daily memorial for himself, chanting, "He has lived," as he went to bed. Seneca says we should do exactly this too, but for honorable philosophical reasons. By treating every single day as a complete life, if tomorrow comes, well, it's simply a joyful bonus. It frees you entirely from the fear of death and grants you true independence from anxiety. So I'll leave you with this. Ask yourself tonight, when you go to sleep, if the story ended today, could you honestly say, I have lived?